What almost killed you? Carbon monoxide. It travels through the air in pockets. I was working on a blast furnace and stepped into a pocket and instantly passed out. I woke up on the catwalk and made my way down off the furnace. Stopping once to puke. It displaces the oxygen in your body and gets in your joints. I felt like I had been hit by a truck for a week. I almost walked in front of a speeding bus on the busy streets of Chicago. Fresh out of high school, sleep-deprived, iPod in, walking to work. Just kept walking until someone behind me grabbed my backpack handle and pulled me back, followed by the whoosh of a speeding bus seconds later. I looked back, and there were a bunch of people behind me, but no one in the crowd said anything or even looked at me. Never found out who saved me, but thanks Chicago stranger from 20 years ago. Had a ticket for the Pan Am flight that blew up over Lockerbie, Scotland and missed my flight. Once when I was 6 I was walking through the woods when this really big kitty comes out of the brush, walks right up to me, brushes its head against my face like a house get against someone's leg, and then just walks right off. Didn't really think much of it at the time. Hindsight, mountain lion. Eating you berries aged 2. My mum noticed red juice around my mouth and was aware the berries are extremely poisonous, so rushed me to hospital. The doctors told her they would attempt to pump my stomach, but in all likelihood they would only be able to make my death more comfortable as it was almost inevitable. My mum phoned my dad telling him to get to the hospital ASAP. Meanwhile I had my stomach pumped. Turns out I hadn't bitten a single berry, I swallowed them all whole. Apparently if I had chewed them it would have definitely been fatal. Needless to say my dad never made it to the hospital and instead stayed at home, and took a chainsaw to the ancient yew trees we had growing in our garden. A year ago, I had a cough I couldn't shake for a few months. I went to urgent care and they found a large mass in my chest compressing my airway. I had a rare type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. 8 months post-chemo and am doing great. I died for 7 minutes during open heart surgery as a baby, and choking on an ice cube almost killed me lol, luckily it melted. In 2007, I had a depressed skull fracture and died during surgery but was revived. My family told me I had blood coming out of my eyes, nose, and ears. People always say you're supposed to see a white light but I didn't see anything. When I woke up, there was a cute ICU nurse, and the first thing I did was apologize to her for being naked. Sepsis caused by a spider bite. No, it wasn't in the southern USA, Australia, or a rainforest. It was in lovely old England. Nearly got finished off by a house spider. A random stranger, maybe. I was 15 years old working a local store by myself. Yes, my boss was an idiot when this man came in that was all scratched up. He didn't look around the store, went straight towards me behind the cash register. He kept making weird comments like, "What would you do if I told you I just robbed a place? What does the back of this store look like? Have you ever called the police before?" Etc. Thankfully a woman came in and the dude immediately left. Found out later that he had robbed a gas station and shot the cashier. Anorexia. 8 weeks into recovery. A helicopter dropped a tree, which hit another standing dead tree. Both fell on either side of me. I got to involuntarily perform a Buster Keaton stunt. When I was 8 I blundered into a bee's nest and was stung about 15 times. Briefly hospitalized. Not long after, I began to receive weekly injections to develop a resistance to insect venom. About 6 months after I started receiving them, I was playing outside my house when I got thirsty, so I headed over to the water faucet where the garden hose got attached, and as usual I stuck my mouth on the end and opened the water valve. Before the water arrived I realized something else had preceded it into my mouth, and even though I spat out the water the solid thing remained in there, and then started stinging me on the tongue, roof of my mouth, and inner lip. While I desperately tried to spit it out, I have a very clear memory of reaching into my mouth and pulling it out while its stinger was still embedded in my inner cheek. The next thing I remember is lying on a gurney while they cut off my sneakers, because my feet had swelled so much they wouldn't slip off. They had an, it seemed to me, enormous syringe of adrenaline which they stuck in my butt. The only other thing I remember, or maybe remember my mother telling me, is one of the doctors saying that if I lived 5 minutes further from the hospital, I may have died. Depression. Cocaine. I'm a bit over 100 days sober now. Feels great to be alive and free from the shackles. 1970s. I was 4 on a carnival ride. It had maybe 7 little cars that you sit in, like in different shapes. A fish, race car, elephant, etc. Just went around in a small circle, and it had a fake steering wheel in the front and it was bolted to an arm, sort of like a very tiny merry-go-round. My dad put me in one car and my sister in the other car. As it began to turn, the car that I was in began to come off the arm and fall down. My dad hopped the fence as he saw it coming down, grabbed me out of it as it crashed to the ground. It would have crushed me. I have very vague flashes of memory of that. I remember my dad holding my hand in the car on the way home, and I remember him laying down next to me as he fell asleep. He would tell me the story many times. I grew up, solidifying the memory. He made sure we never went on a carnival ride again. Carbon monoxide poisoning in my first apartment. I was getting really dizzy and had awful headaches for days. My mom called to check on me and noticed I was slurring my words. Turns out the ancient heating system was slowly killing me. Get carbon monoxide detectors, ladies. Ectopic pregnancy. Got mugged by a gang of 13. One T-Pock and X-Acto knife, as the rest of them held me down. Walked behind me, AMD slashed me deep on the back of the head. The power was out at my house. I didn't have a home phone and cell phones weren't invented yet. So I wrote a note explaining what happened and where and who was involved, laid down and went to sleep, not expecting to wake you the next morning. As you can see, I got through it. I had a really bad allergic reaction. I didn't even know I was allergic to something I ate, but my throat started closing up, and I had to rush to the ER. Now I carry an EpiPen everywhere because that was way too close of a call.